That's the business news, and we're going to go back to our top story now. Germany's expected announcement that it will deliver Leopard tanks to Ukraine. It's really dominating the newspapers, and Dipti is here to take us all through it. Dipti.
That's right, Stuart. After months of debates and pressure and dithering, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is expected to announce that Germany will indeed be sending those Leopard tanks to Ukraine, a decision that could come this Wednesday. That's what the German publication Der Spiegel says on its website today, that decision has been made. The paper explaining, of course, that Germany's decision was also conditional on similar moves from its allies. It's expected to also authorize the exporting of Leopard tanks in other countries like Poland. Another German daily, the Frankfurter Allgemeine, says that Netherlands could also follow suit in what it calls an exclusive report on its website. The Netherlands could donate 18 Leopard 2 tanks that are currently on lease from Germany. So the Netherlands could donate those to Ukraine, following similar moves by Poland, but also Finland and Portugal, Stuart.
So the US, Dipti, could also send its own tanks to Ukraine. This is according to new reports in the US media.
That's right. That decision could also be formalized by Joe Biden this Wednesday. It is not a coincidence, of course, that Germany and the US are making these, are expected to make these concurrent decisions. And the Wall Street Journal says that the US could even send a significant number of Abrams M1 tanks, possibly 30 or so. That's according to the Wall Street Journal today. They say that publicly, U.S. officials have praised Germany for weapons contributions so far in the war in Ukraine. But privately, Washington was very frustrated with Germany's reluctance to move on sending tanks. So that decision, that could all change this Wednesday. Those tanks, however, if sent, as a Washington Post notes, will most likely come through in early spring, so not for a couple of months, but it could come at a time when Ukraine is expected to launch a counteroffensive to regain territories controlled by Russian troops.
Yes, so Dipti, how are the papers then perceiving these decisions?
Well, it certainly marks a turning point. That's really the big message from the papers today. This is from The Guardian today that calls it a historic move on its front page, as you see there, particularly in Russia's war against Ukraine, and notably a historic move in allies moving to really concretely support Kyiv. La Repubblica, the Italian daily, has one word on its front page, as you see there: escalation. It says, the paper says that this expected move by several allies to send tanks is really an escalation in this war against Ukraine, that the U.S. could not let its allies, its Western allies, lose confidence in NATO's ability to protect them, or worse, have NATO allies sort of taking decisions unilaterally. So that's really what's pushing these concurrent moves by Germany and U.S. today.
Well, the war in Ukraine was one contributing factor last year to a 50% spike in journalists' deaths around the world. But it is not the region where the most journalists were killed. This is according to a new report, Dipti.
That's right. It's from the press watchdog. So it's the press watchdog called Committee to Protect Journalists. And they released a report looking at the number of journalists killed while reporting or news gathering in 2022. They say more journalists in Latin America and the Caribbean were killed last year than any other region in the world. At least 67 journalists were killed globally, 50% more than the previous year in 2021. Obviously, Ukraine was a big factor. At least 15 journalists were killed in Ukraine after Russia's invasion, most of them during news gathering or reporting operations. The last documented death was that of a French cameraman last May. But the Committee to Protect Journalists says that journalists are frequently injured by shelling, with reports that they might even be deliberately targeted by Russian troops. Now, as we mentioned, Latin America was the deadliest region to practice journalism. Mexico was the most dangerous place for journalists last year, with Latin America and the Caribbean making up the deaths of 30 journalists. So that's almost half the total number of journalists killed worldwide. Journalists killed while reporting on crime, corruption, gang violence, and environmental issues. Haiti was also very dangerous. And finally, another key takeaway from this report, Stuart, was, of course, the death of Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh last May in the Palestinian West Bank city of Jenin, which the CPJ says was the latest example of Israeli impunity for crimes against the press. Stuart.
Now, finally from Dipti, another study out by the University of St Andrews has found that humans are able to understand and communicate with chimpanzees much more effectively than we imagine.
That's right. Well, chimps, of course, non-verbal, but it turns out that we're actually deceptively good at understanding their non-verbal cues. At the University of St Andrews, according to the Daily Telegraph today, primate behavior experts showed 20 short videos of chimpanzees and bonobos to about 5,000 participants and then asked them to interpret what these non-verbal cues were in sort of a multiple choice quiz. For 9 of the 10 questions, most participants guessed correctly. So I thought it might be interesting to see if you too can guess correctly the chimpanzee cues. So this is the first video, Stuart. Let's see if you can figure out what the chimp is saying there.
He's got
Scratching
fleas.
his
He's got fleas. He needs a clean.
Well, actually, yeah, you're right. It means he wants to be groomed, and you know, chimpanzees. Grooming is very much a part of their social fabric of being chimpanzees. So he's asking to be groomed. This one, I did not give you the answer, Stuart. So you're gonna have to.
I didn't have the answer for the last one.
Oh, sorry. What is this? He's shaking a branch. He or she. I'm assuming it's a male chimpanzee.
Either something about he wants a house over a roof over his head, or he wants to eat something. Is he just trying to pull it off to eat it?
No. He's as Marvin Gaye would say, he wants to get it on. He's looking for a partner to mate with, Stuart.
What if you shake a branch?
Well, apparently that is the call for chimpanzees, that they are ready to get down and dirty.
I've got a sign for you, Dipti. How about this one? There you go. I think you know what that means, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Lovely press review, though. Won't be using that sign. Thank you very much, Dipti, with the papers on France 24 for us.